We're going to go into discussion. Director Tingo is first.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Smith. Is he left the room?
Yep, he's still here.
Oh. Mr. Smith, have you and your board had any discussions about deeding the firehouse over to a Mountain House Community Services District should you be awarded the contract?
Smith, you're on.
We talked about negotiations and furthering negotiations, which would include eventually deeding that station over. But we'd have to still negotiate that. Would we absolutely come here tomorrow and give it to you? No.
Day after tomorrow?
No. And you understand the reasons for that because of how this all took place to begin with. And we lost a lot of revenue. There's no question about it. And I know Mr. Gutierrez doesn't think we lost as much as I indicated. And I don't have the exact figure, but I know we've lost hundreds of thousands, and over a period of time it's going to be millions of dollars in tax revenue, giving up the Tracy rural area we gave to Mountain House. And so in that negotiations back, when they started those negotiations back in the day, that was the agreement, that they would give us the station and the equipment. And then, because we're giving up more property, the second station. But it's all negotiable. The only reason we stopped negotiations to begin with, a wall went up because we wouldn't pick and choose what services we'll offer Mountain House. We offer full service, period. There's no negotiating there. We offer full service, that's all we can offer. We don't include reserves. We have reserves, we have volunteers, but we do not use those for staffing. They're exactly what they're called, reserves and volunteers. They're learning the process. So they're there to help our firefighters that are on duty. And so the negotiation stopped. We didn't get to talk any further. We're not opposed to Mountain House getting their fire station back. We understand that. We know what you wanted. We know eventually you want your own fire department. We understand all that. We can work together towards that. But I think you and I both realize that's years down the road. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. It might happen in the next 10 years. So we need to work towards that. We need to negotiate those things. A cap on services. We need to negotiate that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lamb, you're next.
I got a bunch of stuff here, so I'll start with a little bit of it and then I'll release it to somebody else. I think a large part of why I'm here, I won't speak for everybody else, thanks, is that we have this convoluted, and I think everybody that's been involved with this process is aware of this. We've got this convoluted situation where we contract with Tracy Rural Fire, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, just to make sure I've got the terminology right, they've contracted with Tracy to provide their administration and to administer their fire system. And Tracy and Tracy Rural have a JPA, which is a joint powers agreement, which means you're co-owners of the fire system, is that correct?
Correct.
And
two from each.
Right. Right. Okay. And that means that you each have two representatives on your board.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And Mountain House contracts with Tracy Rural Fire.
Correct.
We don't have any representation on that board.
Because you're in a contract.
I understand. I'm going to put this all out here. So when decisions are made on where to expend resources, where to buy new stations, what equipment to buy, and where to place it, Mountain House has no say.
Correct.
That fair? And so you're building new stations, you're buying engines, stuff's moving around, and we're paying our 15% of the overall whole piece of pie.
Correct.
We're also maintaining your stations just like they're maintaining ours, right? They're paying 86% of our station maintenance, and we're paying 14% of yours.
So you're paying for your maintenance, we're paying for our maintenance, and the city's paying for their maintenance.
So we only pay for maintenance on our station?
Correct. That's why the formula's broke up the way it's broke up. Is that correct, Chief?
That's
Can you explain that?
That's why I'm getting clarification, because I don't.
Yes.
Maybe I don't understand that.
So far, I think I'm right.
So we're paying for a maintenance on our station.
You don't pay separately. We don't itemize what we pay for the Mountain House station versus others. We have a maintenance budget. We have typical in public finance, you'll have things like internal service funds or internal service charges for servicing your own stuff. So you pay that 15% of the maintenance budget.
Of the overall budget?
Overall,
So,
correct.
so we're paying for 15% of all the station's maintenance?
Well, yeah, if we had $100,000 allotted for station maintenance, you're paying $15,000.
Right, and so that maintenance is happening all over the board. So we got this brand new fire station that we have, and you have, now you've got some new stations, but we also have some older stations in there that probably require more maintenance. So we're paying, you know, we've got this new station that we deeded over to you guys. I'm just trying to get it all out there so it's clear the context of this. So to me, there's not equity there. The other problem is we're paying this maintenance cost. So when you maintain something over time, you're keeping the equity value of that thing. If you don't maintain it, it loses value. Like if you don't ever maintain your car, it's going to go worth, you know, when you bought it new, it's worth $30,000. And within 10 years, it's going to be worth nothing. But you put money into it to maintain its value. But when we pay our share of the 15%, we're paying for, you know, based on one station out of those, we get zero equity value out of that. So over the course of 10 years, or 15 years, all the maintenance that we put into the whole program, we may actually purchase the station again, but then when we go to sell it, you know, at the end of the whole thing, we don't have anything. That's what's actually causing the problem for the fire station, is we're paying for maintenance for somebody else's car. We get nothing out of it at the end of the period. So that's where the formula is complicated for us. So that's that.
Could I answer?
Sure.
To that real quick?
Sure.
You're also, that percentage doesn't increase if the expenditures incurred for that station or the equipment was greater than
I understand
the sum. So, you know, if,
I understand that.
You know, if your
It's
utility
average.
bill is higher at that larger station than some of the others, we don't
I get
then
that.
adjust the percentage and that kind of thing.
I would have to believe
But
it.
you're right that you don't have equity in either.
I'm a property manager, so I deal with deferred maintenance and maintenance stuff all the time. And I know it costs less to maintain a new property. I have a bunch of properties in Mountain House, and I got a bunch of properties in Tracy. And the properties in Tracy, some are 100 years old. I got one on Windler Avenue. You probably know exactly where that is. That thing costs me a fortune to maintain because it's an older station. It's an older code, it's older materials, it's harder to maintain. It just has parts that are always falling apart on me. And I have almost no maintenance on my properties in Mountain House. So for me, that becomes problem, and I'm trying to express this for everybody, that becomes problematic. I've never had it explained to me properly, and I've asked at least 3 times to Mr. Nero. I don't think I've asked anybody that's in this room. The staffing model and the way that, and how we derive at our 15% is that we have a company here, or we have a station. Is that 15% because of the station or because of who's there?
It's because the personnel that are there and then all the costs associated with operating the fire department in its totality. So you have 9 personnel that are assigned to this station. We have 3 shifts, we have a 3 platoon system, and there's 3 shifts with 3 persons each. So your cost allocation involves those 9 bodies and then all the support functions to operate the fire department. Some of those things you talked about, the maintenance of equipment, the utilities, the mountain. It's kind of interesting because I know your questions about indirect costs and some of those too. Keep in mind when we go through a hiring process and may use a recruiter in that process, or select someone like the fire chief, like we're going. There's no supplemental additional bill for something that comes to Mountain House. That's included in the overall picture. So there's fixed costs. We've heard things about the 5% of the calls. It's about 6% of the calls with 15% of the cost. But there's fixed costs associated with what you're speaking of. Whether they run 100 calls today or 2 calls, the same cost exists to pay the personnel that are there.
I get that. So my contention isn't with that. That's Director Gutierrez's thing, and I'll let him speak to that. But my thing is that our contract says that we will pay for those personnel. It's focused on that personnel cost. And at some point, Tracy placed 2 companies in one station, but treats it like it's one company station. So those resources are located outside of Mountain House. I guarantee if we put a second company in Mountain House, I suspect that we would get billed, 2 out of however many instead of 1 out of so many. So to me, that there's a problem in this formula that's been in existence for I don't know how long. I assume since the inception of Mountain House, when you guys first drew this up, when none of us were here, it was the county, dealing with Tracy Rural Fire Board. This formula hasn't been touched, and we talk about what's happened over the history. I know Mr. Balzerini is a big, he wants to see Tracy stay forward, but he brought this to our attention back, when he was a board member with us, and we've never been able to get that formula examined to say, is this fair? So I think I'll stop here, but I'm trying to give you an understanding of why the funding part of this, I completely agree with all the testimony about it's not apples to oranges. Tracy is in a much better position to respond to a large fire incident quickly and more fluidly. I get that. I have to kind of rely on some metrics about what does that really mean in practice. What real risk do we have? That's what we're here for. But fundamentally, this is a problem where we've tried to negotiate before any of this RFP came up, and we were basically told, well, this is our contract and we can't budge. And even when we were talking about it, you're justifying the cost but not looking at the underlying problems. We've got a formula that, in our opinion and why we went, or my opinion, I'll supposed to speak for myself, is fundamentally flawed in a way that's not good for Mountain House. And I'm going to leave it at that for right now and listen to my other board members, and I've got more, but I'll take a break. Thank you.
I would like to just address a couple of items.
Sure.
And I understand, I'm very sympathetic to what you're saying as far as the maintenance and that type of thing. But you also have to understand, every year there's equipment that has to be replaced on those engines, whether it be hoses, whether it be outdated equipment. Recently, I think there was a new compressor put in the station, those types of things. We don't come to Mountain House and ask for you to pay for those costs. That's included, and that's what part of that maintenance is. All that equipment, the equipment that we used 10 years ago doesn't work today. We have to continually update and upgrade equipment that these medics use, that the engine uses, radios, all those things. That's all included. That's all part of that maintenance.
Right, but the formula is based on, and this goes back to
on manpower. So
yeah,
we're all paying exactly the same.
Well,
You're not paying any more than we are.
We're not paying our relative share of manpower because there's that one company over at Tracy that's
Correct.
That's pulled out of the, and that's the sticky thing.
And I mentioned that already earlier.
And something that you brought up, and I've heard it several times about the reason why we deeded over that fire station, is that you were going to lose all of this fire revenue, but you also lost the requirement that you service that area. So you were losing revenue that was intended to service an area that you no longer service. So you would have lost that responsibility. If we had, the fire station to me, and it already happened, so I can't change what happened.
I can't either.
Right, I understand that. We can't change what happened in the past, but to say that it was before that revenue stream, when Mountain House engaged in the fire contract with Tracy Rural Fire, all of a sudden now you have that revenue stream. And you've had it since we had the contract with you up until today. So that argument just falls flat on me. I can't imagine a reason why that fire, and it already happened, we're stuck with it. But now I'm seeing in this contract, it says we're also going to give away the second one. I'll tell you right now, I can't support any contract, and this is me only, I can't support any contract that gives away that second fire station.
Negotiable.
Right.
Why can't we?
Right.
We didn't negotiate.
Yeah, so I'll be done for now.
My turn.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Smith, don't go away. I wanted to follow up on Director Lamb's comment. You said you guys lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax revenue. Well, who did you lose it to?
We You.
And then when we collected that tax for the special tax, I don't know, is it 3 for a public service? Who do we give the money back to?
I don't know, you contract with us for fire service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point.
So the point is, you didn't really lose that money.
I don't know what you're getting from, on that 3 cents. I don't know what you're getting.
Well, whatever we collected, we gave it back to you to provide service. So I don't know that you really lost hundreds of thousands, but I know that you got a station. How much did you pay for that fire station?
Nothing.
Nothing. That station's worth anywhere $2 to $3, $4 million that you got for free.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Director Gutierrez.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, I'm going away. And again, you know, Tim, we talked and negotiated. I think when you got on board, you took a very proactive stance, I've noticed, when you got on there to deal with the budget issues. And we share some common things about trying to get it right. Because I know when prior to you can get on Tracy Rural Board, I think you're the best thing that happened for them, because really to get them moving in the right direction. One of the things that you did immediately, because I know, you know, at the cost that you're paying for how many fire stations did you have when you got on the board? 3 or 4? 4. The city, Tracy Rural was in arrears to the city of Tracy for, I don't know how many millions of dollars because of manning that at the per station. How many millions of dollars were in arrears to the city of Tracy?
I think originally it was 7 or 8 million.
But through your leadership, you've mitigated that down to how much now?
Well, 4 million.
That's, and I'll tell you, the residents of Tracy Rural should be very happy and commend you for the leadership that you took with that board. You know, reducing the arrears that you owed the city of Tracy, because, you know, one of the things that I saw strikingly was when you reduced 2 of your stations down to 2, and I understand you're saying because of low density, but a house fire is a house fire is a house fire, whether it's one rooftop with 100 houses or a one rooftop fire, whether it's among 10,000, a fire is a fire. You still want to have, like I've heard from the fire union folks and everybody else, that you want a 3-man response to that. And then, you know, and then you're saying, well, we have other units that we can respond to as well. Well, the same thing, if we went to a two-person firefighter at this station, of course, one being a paramedic and an engineer, and we had a fire structure, and we're still part of Tracy Rural Fire, you'll respond to another unit. And then I've heard testimony from Tracy Fire Administration and their union staff, the stellar response they would have from another fire station out here with less than 8 minutes. So the question I have is, I've looked, you know, where you're saving about almost what 980,000 plus from those 2 fire stations of going with rather than 3 to 2. But again, I just commend you for the great job you did with Tracy Rural Fire as far as bringing that cost down, because, you know, initially you were several $1 million in the rear with the city of Tracy. And we share that same concern as Director Sue, or President Sue, was telling you on our public safety tax too, the amount of money we bring in, and then what, you know, we bring in, you know, roughly about 2.2 million, but our safety bill between police and fire is running about 3.6 million. So we have to dip into the other special tax, or sometimes our general fund, to subsidize that. And we've been doing that for the last several years because we figured, you know, there'll be an upturn on our community. But I just wanted to, you know, just to clarify real quick on right now. I noticed you went on the 3 fire stations. You're about ready to sell 1 fire station, I understand? Or are you going to lease that out?
We're just feeling the market out. We're not that interested in selling it.
So, okay, so you're going to keep that one. But do you intend to move to the other stations, the 3-person fire company?
The new stations?
All the existing ones, the other fire stations you have now?
Eventually, yes. I think they all should be 3.
Well, when is your projection with Tracy Rural Fire? I'm just talking, if we go with your contract and we renegotiate, we would like to be sure that those rural stations that you have, which we depend on for mutual aid, that they're going to be staffed with 3 firefighters, opposed to 2.
The chief can probably address that better than I could.
Okay. Thank you.
Down. Director Lucid.
Fellas, we're a governing board and we deal with spending money, so apologies for all the questions about money. But here's another one. So the French camp reported they have a surplus, and Tracy has a debt with the city of Tracy, several million. Director Gutierrez mentioned it earlier. How is that debt being paid off? That's my question.
Okay, and that was the prepaid services agreement that I alluded to. In other words, that has been carried for quite some time, and that Tracy Rural got to the point where they were actually, the revenues were sufficient to support expenditures, but the debt still existed from years prior. This prepaid services agreement, where they're taking on a larger staffing allocation, even though the city is receiving a direct benefit from that, they negotiated an agreement that recognized a term of a little over 7.5 years. That said, they calculated out how long it would, what's the value of that service, what's the debt, and how long will it take to pay that back. It's being paid back not as so much as a check written to say this is going towards the debt, but it's through Tracy Rural's covering of the full expenses of that station that would otherwise be shared with the city for that specified term. At the end of that term, there's a new negotiation between the City of Tracy and Tracy Rural Fire District to talk about how to jointly fund that station. At which point the Rural Fire District should see a surplus in that regard, because it will lessen their burden to pay for that station alone.
Does this affect our contract at all?
No, not directly. No.
Oh, all right.
Not the Tracy Rural debt.
Any other questions? Discussion? Are we ready to make a motion? Anybody have any other comments or discussion?
Yeah.
Dirk, you do.
Oh, I said I had time to talk.
All right, then make it brief.
So, I think this is germane. I think most of a lot of the guys here know I'm a member of the Mountain House CERT team, which means I work on the board of directors that authorize the contract, but I'm also working under Brian Dagley on his CERT team and under that crew. And one of the things that I had talked to them about in the past was having the CERT team muster over here. And this really just speaks to me about the bureaucracy and the administration in Tracy Rural Fire, which is a concern to me, that we have a significant number of volunteer CERT members over here. I think we probably have, and Brian could say for sure, or somebody, but it's probably close to 40 or 35% of the volunteers in the CERT program. And in a real world scenario, they're teaching us how to deal with catastrophic things. Not like what you guys know how to do, but we're training to do preparedness and to go door to door, do triage. If we really had a regional emergency on the scale of a big earthquake that took out a major portion of Tracy and took out a major portion of Mountain House, right now, all the CERT members are mustering over in Tracy. But those 35% of the people, I know that I'm not going to leave Mountain House when my neighbors' houses are all falling down. But the problem is I can't really do anything under the CERT designation because I have to be deployed by Tracy. And I've talked to them a number of times at the CERT level. I haven't tried to bucket up the chain. I was told actually I needed to follow the chain of command. That it would be, I think, appropriate to muster the Mountain House residents in Mountain House so they could address the needs of their community. And when I asked at the last 4th of July parade if we could do an exercise for the CERT members in Mountain House to support barricades and provide some communications for the parade route, I was told, they asked their group and they told us that we can't do that. And I was told, well, we're not going to allow Mountain House residents to do it. It's either going to happen at the whole CERT team or it's not going to happen at all. Well, what they said is it's not going to happen at all. So I can't muster them to learn and train in Mountain House. We don't muster in Mountain House. So then I think, okay, and this is going towards French Camp. They're open to working on a program here, which is kind of why I brought it up earlier, to find out what their position is. Because I see the great value that you guys have been providing training, but in a real regional incident where both towns were done, I don't see where it helps Mountain House, because other than for ourselves, we learned how to take care of our family and maybe our neighbors, but I can't go out there as a CERT person and have the protections and liability protections as a CERT team unless you guys deploy me and you want me to go over to Tracy. And unless I sign in on that sheet, you know where I'm going with this, yeah. I think. So I think when you guys get to the point, if we get to where we're sticking with Tracy and get into contract negotiations, that's something that's important to me, we've been trying to build this community and build an identity for a while, so that people recognize Mountain House. You know, we don't blur the lines between what's Tracy and what's Mountain House. We would love to be self-sufficient as a community and stand on our own 2 feet. And I think maybe some of the behind-the-scenes sentiment is to forge our own way so that we can have some control. Like this JPA thing is really hard for me. You guys are making all the spending decisions about how the fire department spends money, and you basically just send us a bill for 15% with a formula that I don't agree with. You know, and not necessarily crazy about the way those resources are being allocated. Can somebody clarify about the equipment? Did we purchased an engine when you guys got the fire station? Did we buy all that equipment?
You did.
And then we gave it to you guys?
Correct.
Can anybody speak to why we did that? None of us were here.
I think it's been said a couple of times tonight that, you know, I was with the organization, I've been with the organization for 21 years.
So you know.
But I wasn't in a position to negotiate any contracts. I've moved up since then. So, and the board did not exist at that time. So we've been living by the agreements that we've made in the past. That's our current situation. Now, obviously, that's why this board is deciding to go out and have more control in whatever a new contract looks like. And we understand that too. So I can't speak to why you did that or why you signed on the dotted line for that.
Neither can I.
But that's what we did. And so I will say, though, that new equipment is actually, by way of the JPA agreement, new equipment. So in other words, we're not replacing existing, a new item is needed within the department. That is split 50-50 between Tracy Rural and the city of Tracy and is not assessed in Mountain House. So
we're still not getting any equipment.
But you don't have any equipment. True. But new equipment's not done that way. So far what you supplied is you supplied, and we still have that same fire engine that we run out of here. But there'll become time to replace it. And when it comes time to replace it at approximately $550,000, it would be the district, Tracy Rural Fire District's responsibility to replace it. There's no provision in the current contract that says we come back to Mountain House and they're responsible to replace
that. So we get 15% of that cost.
Yeah. So no, not on equipment. You shouldn't, because that's a different account. Well, you probably fund a portion of the vehicle replacement account by the formula. Yeah.
This isn't a good time to be doing that. What I'm saying is, I'm hearing, what's bugging me and why I'm talking about this stuff is I'm hearing different numbers. So I'm seeing stuff on Facebook, they're saying one thing, but I'm going to trust him. If you can convince him that your numbers are more accurate than his, and he'll say, oh my God, you're right. And then he'll tell me. So that's what I'm trying to get at is right now, I'm looking at what I'm being told and I'm getting a discrepancy. I'm going to trust the guy I'm paying to trust. And right now, what I'm seeing is that we're digging ourselves in a hole under these contract terms. So we're going to get into what we can do. I don't know what the rest of the board's going to do, but
can you let us make a motion then?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Director Tingle, you have a motion to make.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we keep Tracy Rural Fire Department as our service provider and renegotiate the costing, the station, and the formula for providing our quality service.
May I make a clarification?
Sure.
You're really authorize, your motion's really to authorize a general manager to negotiate and return back to the board for the board's consideration. Is that correct, ma'am?
That's correct.
Thank you.
You want to?
But I want to include this renegotiation to include all those things, yes.
Okay.
Let me take a second first.
I got a clarification.
Is there a second? I'm going to second. Okay, clarification question, Director Lane? Oh, sorry.
If we're going to take this route, will Tim, will he commit to extending the deadline in the event that negotiations break down as they've done in the past, so that we're not between a rock and a hard place? I don't want to take this vote and get jammed.
Absolutely.
So, for as long as it takes you to get the negotiation done,
sure,
will you be willing to extend by that much time?
Absolutely.
So if it takes us a month to negotiate and get a contract?
It takes us 2 years to negotiate.
No,
Yes, okay.
Actually, if we don't switch contractors by September, is it month to month or?
No, that's why I'm getting this extension.
So
If I may-
the attorneys can draw up an
If I
extension.
may,
Yeah.
what you're suggesting is not practical, just extending a day per day based
No,
off the
yeah.
negotiations.
No, once they get finished, because we have till September. I mean, if we see that we're not getting
If we haven't reached something by September, the attorney, our attorney or your attorney can, or together, they can draft an extension.
I would
to go
recommend
6 months
against
or a
that. I
year.
would recommend an extension be entered into before you
No, I-
go down this
That's
road.
fine.
I want to see the extension entered into right now.
Well, I'm hoping the negotiations are done by March.
No, what if we ask for a month extension so instead of September, it'll be October, and that gives you guys a month to try to come back to us with something that's.
Wait, actually, can we just, we built in this time to negotiate. That's why we're doing this in, what month is this?
Well,
We built in this time,
we've had a year and a half to negotiate, and the
but
problem
they
is
haven't negotiated.
There's
I
a
believe
third- there's a
I believe
third
we can
party.
negotiate it before the contract's done.
Yeah.
well, that's okay. I don't want to get jammed for.
The only problem is that there is a transition of logistics and, personnel and
Oh, I
equipment.
don't think we negotiate till September. Like I said, we should be done in the next few
Our
weeks.
concern from a staff point of view is that probably even if you did switch now, it's gonna take this much time, it's February now, we're talking September, so we're about 7 months. It's gonna take that much time to make an appropriate transition. So every month you lose,
If there is a
you're
transition.
squeezing, if there's a.
That's why
transition.
I'm saying that the negotiation time needs to be the extension time. Otherwise, we're pinching ourselves here.
I think we could give it a month, and if we don't have it, then come back. I don't think we need to build in the extension, so
And is French Camp willing to stick around?
they already said, okay, off the record.
I'm just looking them over there. That's what I'm looking for.
On record,
All
they
right.
said yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the motion still is to accept Tracy for now, pending negotiation, authorize the general manager to go
To
into
begin
negotiation.
negotiations with Tracy
Tracy.
Rural Fire Protection District, yes, sir.
And I second the motion. Is there an alternative motion? No. So then we're ready to vote. Let's start with,
I would like to make a motion.
you want to amend the motion?
Oh, no, go ahead.
We already have a motion, yeah.
You just gotta.
You're not going to amend
Well,
it.
yeah, let me, well, no, I'm not gonna.
What do you want to do, Brian? Just put it in
You
simple
I
English.
want to vote on this thing here.
Okay, all right. Let's go with Director Gutierrez
And the motion was,
to authorize the general manager to start negotiations with Tracy.
and we discussed, and French Camp gave us heads up, so if that does fall out, we do have a backup.
Yeah,
And I say yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Director Tingle?
Yes.
Director Lucid?
No.
Director Stu? Wait, it's already 3-1, right? Yes. All right, so the motion passes. The meeting's not over, but I'm sure most of you guys can go home now. Let's move on. Let's move on to item number